Us, abandoned ship. We're not caring about this car. We're thinking about the next year.
Exit clauses, yada yada yada.
Hulkenberg is the blue shell right now. Angle grinder guy, he gets a raise.
There you go.
Whoa.
He gets both salaries.
There you go.
What are they doing with the 5th and 6th seats?
Yeah, it's just Weenie Hut Formula One Junior now.
They don't fire up the same way that F1 cars do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tyred Boys podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. We had a very wet, crazy British Grand Prix weekend. But, of course, we've got our usual quick hitters, do your work here. We've got our feeder series with the F3 and F2 racing weekends at Silverstone as well. So a lot to get into and talk about. Justin, it is good to see you, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. I was really looking forward to the British Grand Prix, and I think it did deliver. This week I'm gonna be looking forward to a screening of Formula One, the movie. Gonna go see Brad Pitt in all of his big screen glory. I'm really looking forward to that. So just heaps and heaps of Formula One action on the docket for us here. So I'm excited to get into the episode.
I very likely will be with you that on that this week. Colleen and I have been planning on going to see the movie, and I have a good old movie gift card that I got from Christmas, so I've got plenty of good reasons to go. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. But I'll jump right into the quick hitters. Not a huge week here, but we did have an IndyCar race as well at Mid Ohio. With that IndyCar race, we also had the Indy NXT series. Where the winner was rookie Dennis Hauger, who was previously Red Bull Junior prospect coming up through Formula 2, raced in Formula 2 last year. So starting to make a name for himself over in that Indy NXT series. But a solid jump, I think, or transition for one of those drivers that there wasn't a spot for in Formula One, and so it's always nice to see them get opportunities in these other series, whether that's IndyCar, Formula E, and whatnot across the world here.
Yeah, and as we talk about, like the windows to get a seat in Formula One are very narrow. Even if you are like of the ilk, you're with a team, yada yada, like whatever the pedigree would be. Sometimes it's just not the right. We learned there's kind of like cycles, right? So yeah, it's nice to see these drivers who are significant prospects for the Formula One series, getting drives into just into the other categories, because there's just such limited seats available.
Yeah, and with the Indy NXT series, so I haven't paid much attention to them across the year so far. I've primarily focused on just the IndyCar series. But Juan Manuel Correa is another F2 driver that is over in that Indy NXT series this year. And Dennis Hauger has actually been on a tear. So they've had eight races so far. He has 5 wins, 6 pole positions, 7 top 5s. He's been in the top 10 in every race. So he is up by 47 points on his teammate Lockie Hughes in the championship right now, which is a pretty impressive start. And I think we likely could see Dennis Hauger moving up into the IndyCar field next year. There's always a lot more movement, it feels like, in IndyCar, having a slightly larger field than what we see over in Formula One.
Yeah, big time agree, and just looking forward to what the Red Bull youngster can do moving forward.
Yeah, and so looking over into the IndyCar series where we had the Indy 200 at Mid Ohio, we had a pretty interesting race. The strategies and everything were offset between Scott Dixon and Alex Palou, who are the 2 front runners competing with that Chip Ganassi Racing squad, just running at the front of the field. And it seemed like a weekend for uncharacteristic mistakes because Alex Palou ends up making two different mistakes going off the circuit while he's putting in practically quali pace laps on the red soft tire compound there. Um, is just flying, but two times takes turns a little bit wide, goes off, gets his wheel in the grass, and the second time gives up that position in P1 to his teammate Scott Dixon, who drove an impeccably clean race, just solid start to finish, went with a two-stop strategy where I believe the majority of the cars were doing 3 pit stops overall. Felix Rosenquist in P6 was the next driver to do that two-stop strategy. So it pans out for Scott Dixon, who is the kind of the king of fuel saving in IndyCar. And so getting that opportunity with a pretty clean race without too many cautions or incidents like we've seen recently is able to cruise on through and take that victory away from Alex Palou.
Yeah, Pelot leading like 70 plus laps of that race, really controlling it. But like you said, just a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes, and and there goes your victory. Still, we have Chip Ganassi on top. 1-2 for 1-2 for the team. So that's a really positive. But like very very competitive between the two. Very exciting to just have just two top dogs really going at it. Quite exciting in that regard. One thing that really caught my eye on the during the Mid Ohio race was the livery for the Chip Ganassi cars. The all black murdered out. It's like the OpenAI livery. I was like, wait, what? All right, so I did a little bit of research, and I guess back in February, Chip Ganassi announces the partnership with OpenAI. The idea is like, little collaboration here. Let's see how their systems can help benefit us. Like, will there be performance gains to be had incorporating this type of technology? So that was back in February. And then earlier this month, OpenAI expands the partnership to become Chip Ganassi's primary partner. So they're, now debuting this livery. I was like, yeah, exactly. I did not think I had seen this before. So the partnership started back in February, but dude, this all black livery looks insane. And then because I'm pretty sure this is the first race that they've run this specific livery. It's crazy. New partnership, new livery, and then they go to 1-2 the race. I'm like, man, that's like, dude, that's just insane. I'm not saying that there's like performance gains or whatever, but just like as far as a like sponsorship launch, like something like this, I was like, you couldn't ask for a better weekend in IndyCar. So I just thought that was a really interesting angle because this is a company name I'm hearing a lot, and it's just amazing to come across as just like colliding of worlds. It makes sense, similar to like an Oracle Red Bull. There are just wild things happening when you think about the sponsorships. So yeah, great race for the Chip Ganassi team. Pelot, Dixon duking it out. Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, and it's cool to see, like you were saying, the liveries change. Scott Dixon has been driving his PNC Bank Honda Chip Ganassi car for a while. He very rarely deviates from that livery, but we have seen Alex Palou with the DHL yellow and red Honda number 10 car. We've seen him. He did the Red Solo Cup partnership last race out before the Mid Ohio race. Now he's got the Open AI. So it seems like maybe in some instances, depending on the team or the driver specifically, some of those drivers get the specialty liveries and switching that through versus others. Because Scott Dixon, yeah, has primarily and who knows, maybe it's the partners being like, no, we want the car, we want Pelot to have the livery because we're banking on him being out front. I don't know what goes into that, but it is very cool to see the partnerships and the different styles and everything they do. I think it would be very cool to see F1 do some similar things with their specialty liveries potentially being through sponsors and whatnot. We saw, and we did see the Racing Bulls do a specialty livery with one of the, I believe it was one of the Hugo Boss designers, who's one of their partners, designed their car livery and racing suits. So we occasionally see it, but I'd love to see it a little bit more in F1 as well.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, so just a couple of good races now. You know me, I'm super fan. So on race day, I wake up in my Formula 1 TV pajamas. I run out to my Formula 1 TV fridge. I take out my, my bowl. It's like a bowl and spoon set. It's Formula 1 TV. And then I sit down, in front of Formula 1 TV. I put on the pre-race show and I just take it all in. And what I like to do is just see like the famous people or like artists, musicians, whoever. And bro, I never thought I would see the full Avengers touch down at a Formula One race. I swear they were all there. There was Spider-Man, there was Thor's friend from the bridge. They were all just like standing there on the pit wall. I was like, holy heck.
Yep.
They're out there protecting us in space, but every now and again, they take time for a race weekend.
Oh yeah, everyone enjoys an F1 race. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I was watching with Colleen's family. We were down at the shore, so I had the ESPN broadcast, the Sky Sports broadcast, so I didn't get
Ooh.
I know I didn't get my Alex Jakes commentary this week, but just partway through the race, Colleen's dad was like, "Was that Spider-Man?" talking about Tom Holland. They just he was up on the screen. I was like, oh yeah, a lot of celebrities like to go to races and whatnot. But yeah, we saw Keanu Reeves there. It's always pretty cool to see who shows up to these events and all, and who of our favorite movie stars and celebrities and all might actually also enjoy the world of Formula One and everything. So, Tom Holland, Avengers, I know you're out there listening. We appreciate you, just like all of our other listeners. So,
Yeah, very good stuff. And I just have a couple of notes on do you work here? Couple of, rumor mill type stuff going on, but some things that are like actually worth talking about. One thing is we've kind of been talking about it, the FIA presidential race. We were having conversations about Carlos Sainz Sr. and some people thinking that would be a good fit, some others not. We now have a one Tim Mayer throwing his hat in the ring for the FIA presidential race. Just to tell you a little bit about who this guy is. So he's been a motorsports organizer since about 1998, notably being involved in the International Motorsports Association, which is a North American sports car racing like sanctioning body. So involved with that. Also involved in I don't believe it's a series anymore, but was involved with the American Le Mans series, has stewarded for the FIA World Championships in Formula One, World Endurance, Rally Cross, and World Rally Championship. So this guy, like, seems to really have a passion for racing, seems to be in his blood. So yeah, based on what I'm hearing in the paddock specifically, kind of getting endorsements from Zach Brown, I guess he's just the CEO now, is like what his title is. I think there's other, because like I'm pretty sure Andrea Stella is now
is
like
it?
the team principal,
Yeah,
and then he has like a sports director or whatever. But Zach Brown quoted as saying, I liked him. So there are members in the paddock who, Tim would have their support, as well as mentions from the Red Bull team principal, as well as the Aston Martin team principal, saying that, yeah, if that's the way that it went, they would have no qualms. So yeah, it seems like Tim could be a good vote. And we'll just look forward to see if who, if anybody else, throws their hat in the ring against old MBS. But yeah, it seems like Tim would be a fine shot.
Yeah, and it is interesting, especially hearing that Red Bull is okay with this because um Tim Mayer was fired last year by MBS for I guess felt disagreement with some of the stewarding decisions that Mayer had been making. But if I recall correctly, I think the majority of those were negative towards Max, whether it was some of these penalties that he has penalty points on his license, and we're like, that really isn't a penalty. There was a report that one of Max's penalties last year, I believe it was the blocking George Russell, who was on a slow lap during qualifying. The FIA guidelines directly contradict Max having received a penalty point in that situation. They were like, there's no, it like blanketly states there's no penalty for blocking someone on a slow lap. And so I believe that some of those things Tim Mayer was involved with the stewarding decisions, but at the same time, Max and MBS clearly have not been getting along and have had their issues kind of early in the season. In particular, with the decisions about what drivers can and can't talk about. So maybe the grass might be a little greener on the other side with Tim Mayer.
Yeah, which would be a pretty interesting angle if that ends up coming up. Also, part of those conversations was what seems to be buzz around the possible Mercedes seat being open, with Russell not having a contract set in stone. Seems like there were a whole bunch of questions surrounding maybe Mercedes is interested in Max, and maybe that's why, they haven't offered a contract to Russell and all of these things. So just some stirring of the pot in that regard. I don't believe like much is going to come of this. Aaron, you can offer your opinion. The only thing that I wanted to say was in those conversations, in these team principals being prompted about open seats, and if they were looking at other drivers, I had brought this up offline, but I just wanted to offer it again. A name that we had talked about a few times. I just wanted to close the book here on the pod. We've talked about Felipe Drugovich, the team principal at Aston Martin, effectively passed on him. Doesn't seem like there'll be any more Formula One opportunities for him. He's going to stay the reserve driver for them, but has a full-time drive now in Formula E with the Mahindra outfit. So he is, at least accounted for 2025. So that'll be good. But yeah, Aaron, I just wanted to ask, what was your take on the, Russell Max question mark? Does Christian Horner think that Max is going to leave the team, and all of these things?
So in my opinion, I don't necessarily think it makes the most sense for Mercedes or necessarily for Max and Red Bull. Obviously, losing Max, Red Bull would lose out massively. But and you and I talked about it a little bit before, but there's no guarantees when it comes to these new regulations. Like, I think there are some reports out there that Mercedes engine is ahead in these regulation changes for 2026. But at the same time, I don't think that they are that I don't think that guarantees them to be a permanent front runner in the new regulations. So making that change is a little bit risky. However, I'm sure George is pushing for a multi-year contract extension. So I don't think he's trying to get just one extra year. So if he does that multiple year contract extension, then that does potentially rule out Max. If Mercedes keeps looking to Kimi Antonelli, who is really having a very strong rookie season thus far. Um, but yeah, I think in terms for Max, there could be potential other options that may be a better fit. If he were to change, I think Aston Martin is one of those teams that would also be in consideration. Adrian Newey going there. There's been a lot more conversation about Lance Stroll and his seat. He probably quieted some of the haters this week with his performance in the Grand Prix, but I think if Aston Martin wanted to go for Max, then that's a potential landing place as well. And they would have Mercedes power there, an Adrian Newey designed car. So I think there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that might suit Max a little bit better going there if he does change. But all of that just rides on Max not performing the rest of the year. If the lower than P3 exit clause is what opens up his opportunity for one of those drives.
Yeah, it's up in the air. I think that's pretty well considered from your end. Yeah, I agree. It seemed like an odd time for the conversation to be happening, as well as an odd just like an odd thing to come up. So
I
yeah, that's interesting thoughts.
And I think with part of the reasoning and timing, of course, is it's Silverstone. You have all of the British media outlets who are the kind of most dominant F1 media outlets out there, who are trying to get their stories, ask these questions. Well, why isn't George Russell's new contract signed? What's going on there? Like, oh, something must be up. Oh, well, George is only 9 points behind Max in the driver's standing, so maybe something's going on there. But I think it's kind of a amalgamation of all of these different timings lining up. The British Grand Prix being George's home race. They're like, oh yeah, why not announce the contract extension for George this weekend? And it's like, well, it hasn't been signed. Well, why is that? And so people just and that's what journalists' jobs are, to let their minds wander and think about all of these details, try to get interesting answers, interesting sound bites, and be the first to kind of break any news. Um, so I think it's just yeah, kind of the storm of the British Grand Prix that maybe brought up a lot of these conversations.
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle actually. Not a weird time because yeah, he's a Brit and it's the British Grand Prix. Man, that's actually the obvious answer. Well, thank you for illuminating that for us because yeah, I didn't even think of that angle. Yeah, really solid stuff, honestly. Before we move into the Formula One weekend, we're gonna start with the Formula 3 coverage. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for taking your time out to join us while we talk about Formula One. We really enjoy it, and so we just enjoy when you would like to share that with us. So, new episodes after every Formula One event, and we just really appreciate you listening. So, thank you, and back to the episode.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, reach out on Twitter, join our Discord. It's all in the link tree in the description of the video and the podcast episode. But yeah, moving right along into the Formula 3 weekend. We had the sprint race, and so these sprint race for F2 and F3 both end up being dry races, much better weather on those earlier portions of the weekend. And in the Formula 3 sprint race here, we had Intra Puvazak, who is the Thai driver in the field, who gets out and keeps the lead early on. Nicholas Solov, one of those title contenders that we've talked about, has a really tough time, gets hit and kind of knocked out of contention down to P29 due to just nothing, no fault of his own. So taking him out of one of those points paying opportunities. And we saw some pretty good fighting for the lead. Teofil Nile had some really nice opportunities to take the lead. He gets the lead off track, has to give the position back. But some very tight fights up there at the front, with Intrapuvazak getting the win, Stenchorn for High Tech in P2, and then Mary Boya in the Campos car. He's an Aston Martin Jr. Getting P3 to round out the podium there in that sprint race.
Dude, and now ever since we talked about it, I think it was last episode or the one before, we were talking about the American
Oh,
driver,
Ugachukwu. Yeah.
Ugachukwu.
Ugachukwu.
Yeah, I was watching his race. Starts P5 or starts P9, makes it up to P5. So I thought that was really solid. And yeah, just a nice performance from him, and it's fun to be able to follow a countryman. I feel like I know what's going on. Then I know who I'm rooting for. So yeah, watching his sprint race unfold was very exciting because he was definitely getting moves done, and that was great to watch.
Yeah, and the other person I was really impressed with in the sprint race, Mary Boya, who took P3 on the podium, was having some really nice moves working up through the field. He got a good opportunity with a couple of the other cars around him fighting to get up into that third position before the end of the race there, and he looked really strong in both the sprint and then of course in the feature race as well. And that feature race is where we see some of this wet weather kind of chaos start for the Grand Prix weekend. Nicholas Solov starts out in P1 with Ugachukwu and P2 from that qualifying, and unfortunately, both of them make that decision to go out on slick tires as opposed to doing the wet racing tires. They don't have intermediate tires in Formula 3, so it's either the slicks or the wets. And he just kind of drops, Solov and Ugachukwu kind of just start dropping through the field. Our championship leader, Rafael Kamara, similarly on the slick tires, drops all the way down to P20 early on, just being on that wrong tire. And then we end up with some super heavy rain about halfway through the race after kind of a difficult little stretch there for these F3 drivers to just be able to keep it on track. Have vision to see, and so similar to the F1 race, they bring out the safety car, but then for F3 eventually red flag the feature race here, and classify it as a half points race.
Well, what I thought was so crazy about the feature race was like, yeah, you only get like the half points, but if you look at the start and also the like strategy call of the start of a changeable condition race, these teams are faced with like nowhere close to near perfect information. They have their formation laps, they have their recce laps before lining up for the grid. But once there's a certain point where once you make a call for those tires, like that's what you're on. Pretty sure it was about a 50-50 split of slicks and wets. It was either 50-50 or like 60-40 towards wets, but there was a good chunk of the field that was running the slick tires as well, because like you don't really know like what the conditions were going to be. It was unsure if more rain was coming. So, some teams are willing to take that gamble, and we see these high points runners, you know, you just based on a tire choice, no matter how good of a driver you are, like you're just gonna fall back. One of the title contenders, Kamara, same thing. Just by choice of the slicks, he starts third in the race. By the end of lap 2, he was P20. All those wet weather runners were just making it just making meals out of the slick drivers, and you could see it on the start, like immediately the wet runners are able to just pull so much more grip away from the line. So from that regard, I actually thought it was a really interesting race to see, because those early stages were just like people were relegated to their position based on choices they made like before they even started their cars. So I thought that was an interesting angle, but yeah, unfortunate they don't get to finish it out. Because yeah, I'm sure some of those guys would have loved to redeem themselves in the full wet, where they knew other drivers would be going off. But like we were talking about, the spray is just insane. Even if they have the grip, it's the spray that makes it really tough. So yeah,
Yeah.
red flag that F3 feature race, and then we have a similar layout for the Formula Two running. I'm curious, did you have any final notes on that feature race?
It's just the biggest thing. So, and I think actually I was trying to figure out because the points were slightly off. I think they did 3/4 points for the race because they end up giving giving 19 points to Mary Boya, who won the feature race there when it was red flagged. And so 19, I think, would be that like 3/4 to 25. So I think that's what they ended up doing without like partial points. And so Boya, like for one, just a mega weekend. And really the biggest story I think is the top 3 title contenders in the championship just all struggling super hard. Kamara only picks up 3 points in the sprint race, no points in the feature race. Tim Tramnitz in second gets no points on the weekend. Nicholas Solov on the weekend only gets the 2 points for pole position from the feature race, but drops out of the points in both the sprint and the feature race there. So with those top 3 drivers getting 5 combined points, Mary Boyo with the 27-point pole for the weekend just jumped him up into P4 in the championship. I think he was in P6 maybe ahead of the weekend. Um, so big jump for him there. And he is now very close in contention with Solov and Tramnitz in that P2 position. Both or all 3 still a little ways back from Rafael Kamara. So that title fight is definitely spicing up here with 3 race weekends to go for the F3 calendar.
Yeah, and hope they have some clean weather as well, because they're gonna want to get as many points on the board as possible.
Yeah, and so they'll be with us for the next couple of race weekends. We have the F3 race in Spa, then we have Budapest the week after that, and then followed by about a month off before they race in Monza. So still 6 races to go with the sprints and feature races, but nothing is decided yet, and we're seeing a lot of really good drivers. This is starting to kind of round out who these drivers are that we would expect to be promoted into the F2 field this coming year. But looking at the F2 field and kind of similarly with that F3 coming up, we have Leo Fornaroli, who is starting up on the front row of the grid there in the sprint race for the Formula 2 weekend. He goes on to take the lead pretty early after giving up that position right at the start. So loses out to P2, then makes it back, I believe, still on the first lap. Um, and then goes on to take the victory. Leo Fornaroli, it's his first F2 victory. He was our F3 champ last year. And so this was a huge weekend to jump him up in the standings. And he now potentially, as a rookie in this F2 field, is only 18 points back from P1 in the F2 driver standings. So it would be pretty interesting to see a driver who I don't believe is affiliated with any particular junior team at the moment to win F3 and then immediately go towards the top of Formula 2. I think that just speaks very highly to his skill and his quality of driver. So he's someone who I'm definitely keeping my eye on, especially after that win in the sprint race this weekend.
Yeah, and like you said, first win in Formula 2 for Fornaroli, which is really exciting. And I just want to talk a little bit about the racecraft as well. You see like a really early battle between Fornaroli and Miney, like right off the start, like you had mentioned. Fornaroli losing it to Miney, has to battle back. And you can see how aggressive Fornaroli is. Like he's even willing to challenge in the middle of the corner. So like in other scenarios where drivers will just like basically accept at that turn they've been beaten and then like decide like they'll just go again whatever on next lap turn 3, or if there's like an opportunity, at 14 or whatever it is. But watching Fornaroli race Miney, he was giving him no quarter at all. If he saw an opportunity where he was like going to gain advantage, even in the middle of the corner, he was going to take it, kind of change his line and fight. So I thought that was like kind of crazy to see from Fornaroli, because you just don't see that kind of driving. Like he's willing to fight for literally every inch of the corner, where in Formula One we see kind of a lot of like locking in a position and then tire saving till the end. Like that seems to be a pretty reasonable strategy for a lot of the Formula One teams, especially like when they're in that midfield, don't feel like they're going to be able to advance. They'll just say like, all right, we're just going to lock in what we have. But Fornaroli is so aggressive. It's crazy. So that sprint race was like really fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think like with that, a big part to play in that is the fact that like as opposed to Formula One, these cars are all the same. They're driving the same car. They're have their own setup changes and whatnot to find a good style that suits them with the car and everything. But the cars also being smaller, they have a lot more opportunity to move around. Where, like you said, in Formula One, the strategy kind of is like qualify as best you can and hold on to the positions. There's a lot more risk in Formula One in terms of contracts and sponsorships and stuff like that. You don't want to crash and DNF. It's a much bigger deal. So that aggressive and maybe more risky drive is fun to see from these drivers, but also so much more feasible in these Formula 2 and Formula 3 cars. But it does show a lot of um just a lot of the talent that he has to feel so confident in the car to be that aggressive when he has the opportunity. And so, yeah, Fornaroli, as far as I can see, I don't believe he is a junior of any team at this point. But I agree completely. Very impressed with his racecraft there. And then going over to the feature race, we had Jack Crawford, who is starting up at the front of the field. He is or no. So Jack Crawford started in P3, so up towards the front, but is able to get the lead pretty early on there. But throughout the race, Luke Browning is just climbing his way through the field. Puts in a really good drive in the wet weather and everything. Is looking looking really strong, and then he just misses out at the end of the race there with the opportunity to try and kind of get a new set of wet tires earlier than the rest of the team, but then the virtual safety car nullifies everything, and he unfortunately just misses out on getting to the front of the field. But yeah, very good drive from Jack Crawford from the front of the field. And then for Luke Browning kind of making his way up through.
Well, and that was the most exciting part of the race for me because yeah, he starts down in the midfield, hometown hero Luke Browning from he's a British driver, so for him to be able to make so many overtakes in the wet, nonetheless, all the way up for a podium, have a feeling that it's drives like this that the commentators will remember for like future wet races. I have a feeling that if Luke Browning gets a couple more wet weather runs like this, I think we have a Rainmeister in the making.
Yeah, and it's still a tough position for him to be in because he is competing so well. This race win is big for, or this sorry, not race win, but this
Podium.
podium is great for him as he's working his way up in the field and all, but unfortunately being a Williams junior, he has that conundrum of you have two veterans in those Williams seats right now with Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon. So maybe a good opportunity for Browning to make a run for the title next year and see what happens with contracts and options, or stay in F2 and potentially switch junior teams to something that might be more promising. Um, but Jack Crawford at the top of the field makes a huge dent into Richard Verschoor's lead in the championship. He jumps over Alex Dunn in P2 up to take that P2 position. He is now just 6 points back from Verschoor, who really seemed to be extending that lead pretty strongly, but a 20-point swing in Jack Crawford's favor to really bring him into contention for that championship here. And so another American driver that we can pull for coming up through.
Lots of pretty skilled in English, if you know what I'm saying. I just wanted to remind you, good sir, you said you couldn't remember the last time somebody was winning so much. Our boy Gabriel Bortoleto wins his Formula 3 championship, wins his Formula 2 championship, and then 2025 he's up into Formula 1. So he did the bang bang bang, one a year all the way up.
Was it back to back?
Yeah, 23,
Oh, okay.
24, and now 25. He's in Formula 1. He won both Formula 3 and Formula 2 championships.
I knew he had won both. I didn't remember them being back to back. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. So yeah, I will take that little tidbit for the future. I won't forget now.
Yo, Alonso he didn't hire no slouch, I'll tell you that much. Yo, did you see the love given I guess that would have been.
On the post race radio to between Bortoleto and Hulk.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yes.
No, that was
That was
very exciting, and we'll get to that I'm sure pretty shortly. But any final notes here on the F2 weekend?
No, I just think it's really exciting to see some of these young guys fighting. Now that I understand the machinery a little bit better than I did last year, now that I kind of understand maybe the process and maybe how to think about some of these races, I mean, I've just really enjoyed watching some of these guys, especially Fornaroli's weekend. Like that sprint race was that was like genuinely fun to watch. So yeah, just really enjoying it. But yeah, looking forward to getting to talking about the Formula One race weekend here because yeah, we've got a lot to go through. But Aaron, before we get into the nitty gritty, are you ready to go to the hot seat, sir?
I'm ready to jump on in. So yeah, let's get into it here for the British Grand Prix.
and sometimes I'm all over the place. I'm just like, oh, let me just grab from here. Let me do a little bit of this. But I've got a full theme for us here. British Grand Prix. You're gonna love it. So
Okay.
for those of us playing at home, we got 5 multiple choice questions. We got 3 uh we have 5 questions, 3 multiple choice answers each. We're gonna see how many Aaron can get right, and we're gonna put him in the hot seat. Aaron, are you ready?
Yep. Let's go.
All right, so question number 1. In 2008, this driver won his first British Grand Prix as well as securing his first World Drivers' Championship. Now, who is this driver? Is it A, Felipe Massa? Is it B, Nico Rosberg? Or is it C, Lewis Hamilton?
That would be C, Lewis Hamilton.
Nailed it. Okay, 2008, big year for Formula One. You could argue this is when the Hamilton era begins. Now, question number 2. In 2016, this driver won the British Grand Prix over his teammate who was running with gearbox issues, setting multiple records for the circuit. Who was this driver? Was it A, Max Verstappen? Was it B, Lewis Hamilton? Or was it C, Kimi Räikkönen?
Ooh. I'm gonna go with C, Kimi Räikkönen, who I believe Seb Vettel would have been his teammate at the time.
You do know your history a little bit, but sir, it is B. Lewis Hamilton won the
Ah.
2016 British Grand Prix. Now, question number 3. In 2017, this driver achieved what is known as a Grand Chelem here at Silverstone. So that is the pole, the win, the fastest lap, and led all laps of the race. So who was this driver? Was it A, Lewis Hamilton? Was it B, Sebastian Vettel? Or was it C, Lance Stroll?
Hey, Lewis Hamilton.
Nailed it. Very cool, very cool. So he has a few, and 3 of them were in 2017. So, some could argue 2017 may have been his most dominant year. We'll leave that to the fans to
Well,
decide. Now,
that was right after his the only teammate that's beaten him left, correct?
I believe so because I think that was 2016 that
Yeah,
Nico
I think.
won.
Yeah, so Nico beat him, and he had to really go out there and just stomp everyone in 2017.
Go real hard. All right. So, question number 4. In 2020, this driver had one of the straights on the circuit dedicated to them after many victories of the track. Who was this racing driver? Was it A, Lewis Hamilton? Was it B, David Coulthard? Or was it C, Jenson Button?
Hey, Lewis Hamilton.
Gotcha. Yes, you are correct. The Lewis Hamilton Straight, as it is now called, the track has shifted around a whole lot. I'm sure, I get confused effectively every lap when I see them on the back straight because some of the grid markings are still there. So I get mad confused when I see them on the hanger straight. But the Lewis Hamilton Straight is the main one. So you, sir, nailed it. Now, question number 5. We'll see. We'll see if you figured out the theme here at the end. Now, in 2021, Lewis Hamilton wins the GP in controversial fashion, cheering as his title rival is being checked into the hospital. Which driver did he collide with? Was it A, Valtteri Bottas? Was it B, Daniel Ricciardo? Or was it C, Max Verstappen?
Ooh, pretty tough. 2021, tough season to remember for me. I'm gonna go with C. Max Verstappen was launched into the barriers at 51 Gs or whatever it was.
Horrific scenes, but yes, sir, you are correct. It was indeed Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton coming together, kind of famously at this point there in 2021. Damn, dude, you had a 5 out of 5 all set up if you just figured
I
it out sooner.
know.
You're like, Kimi Räikkönen, I guess. You're like,
I
he would
mean,
not put 2 Lewises.
I kind of was Yeah, I talked myself out of it, but I was thinking like based on the question, the timing, I believe Seb Vettel had just moved to Ferrari, and I was like, Seb like was consistently beating Kimi, so maybe Kimi beat him for the like due to the gearbox. I couldn't quite remember, but yeah, I didn't catch on quick enough, unfortunately. So 4 out of 5 this week here in the hot seat for the British
Yo,
Grand
four
Prix.
4 out of 5, not bad. I love to see it, and I will tell you, I had to rewrite that question a bunch. I was trying to be like generous. The way I kept writing it, it was like too hard. There was like no way you would have been able to guess. But we will try better next time. And I guess question number 6, Aaron, did you guess the theme?
The theme seems to be Lewis Hamilton.
You got it. 9-time British Grand Prix winner. This guy's so dominant on his home track. I just like love that, like, for so many drivers, a home win is so elusive. But he's like, nah, the GOAT just gets to do it as many times as he wants. So that's very impressive to me and very fun. So Aaron, I hope you had as much as fun as I did in the hot seat. This was a great one.
I did, and don't forget, along with his wins dominating this year, he was attempting to go for 13 straight podiums at the British Grand Prix. He had been on the podium 12 years in a row since 2013. So yeah, I mean, obviously Lewis is the current best driver of all time in most people's minds across the course of his career, and still performing very well, even in a difficult to drive Ferrari. So why don't we jump right on into our winners and losers here? Maybe Lewis will be mixed in here, maybe not, but I'm sure we'll talk about him some.
Well, this time I really didn't want to get yelled at, so I made sure I was guaranteed to have different answers than you on my homework. So, Aaron, why don't you start us off with your winners here this week?
Sounds good. And I think this one would be fine for us both to have because I think the entire world of Formula One would easily exclaim Nico Hulkenberg or Nico Hulkenberg as one of the winners for the weekend with his first podium finish. He's been in Formula One for 15 years, 239 race starts before he's able to successfully make it up on the podium. And I think it speaks a lot to Nico and the skill that people clearly see in him, that he has even had this longevity in the sport without getting a race win, or a podium, or really like having a ton of success. Like he's consistently been in midfield teams, but he's always considered like an upgrade for these teams when they're able to get him signed on, or a strong replacement when he's coming in. But just has never had that title fighting or race win fighting car. So uh a perfect storm of the weather, uncharacteristic mistakes, a perfect drive from him, great strategy from the Kick Sauber team, who kind of had nothing to lose. But even his pace at the end when Lewis was trying to chase him down, he looked so strong out there in the late stages of the race. So a huge congratulations to Nico on the podium finish. That's just awesome to see.
Yeah, big stuff, and I can really appreciate his like post uh post race kind of words, his emotions, especially in the post race interview that he gets to do being up on the podium. He spoke with utter confidence and belief in the team, as though this podium came on race 10 for him, not 200 and whatever, right? He spoke with such yeah, the only the only other word I could choose would be like conviction, and really really appreciating what he and the team were able to do. So I'm actually interested in what you said about like success, like our very binary definition of success. I wonder for somebody like Hulkenberg who has this. I mean, the longevity means like the drive and the passion for what he's doing has to be immeasurable, right? So
Oh
I
yeah.
wonder if this guy considers the work that he was able to do with Haas, the work that he's been able to do with Sauber, right? Like you don't go from back of the grid, literally driving your car upside down, like into the ground. You don't go from that to a podium having zero input from the driver, right?
Yeah.
So there's clearly work being done, and yeah, even though it is a P3, I mean that must feel
Oh,
like he won the game, right?
100%.
So yeah, just like different definitions of success, right? So yeah, I think Hulkenberg, huge dub, and I mean, just just so people understand like how big of a victory this is, like these are odd metrics, but like you'll understand, 43% driver of the day vote. It's never more than like 16, 17%, right? People are very like
Yeah,
varied on their answer.
maybe your low 20s, but that's like the highest I've seen.
Overwhelming support. Yo, guess what?
Yeah.
After the race, I went online to check Reddit. You know, I love seeing the
Mm,
memes. I love seeing the conversation. Yo, Formula One Dank was like literally down. They had to freeze the subreddit because of all the influx of people just being like, "Let's fucking go Hulkenberg!"
yeah.
Right? So like the amount of love and support just pouring out for both Hulkenberg and the Kick Sauber outfit was like like literally the internet could not handle it. So
Well,
so
and
go ahead.
even on top, like you're saying, the entire Formula One world really like just loved this. It's like the just such a feel good story, and also like it's just kind of there's so many ways you could take this, a story of determination, a feel good story, like all of these things. But really, just everyone being so excited for Nico. He's a great guy on the grid from all accounts. But even the teams, I don't know if you saw this as you were going through, but Kick Sauber did not have any champagne at the race in their post, like in their paddock area and everything, because this was well outside of the realm of possibilities in anyone's mind there. So I know I believe it was the Aston Martin team, the Mercedes team, all brought over champagne for the team. Mercedes put together a little congratulations package with a note and everything to deliver to Nico and the team there. Max Verstappen hung on and waited for Nico and took him home on his flight on the personal or the private jet and everything back to Monaco where they both live and all. And Nico, it just it's so cool to see, and for Kick Sauber as well, like the going from scoring their first points of the season last year at Las Vegas, the second to or like one of the last races on the calendar, to now with that P3, they jump up from P8 above Racing Bulls, above Aston Martin, and now just a little ways back from Williams with such a big points haul. So just quickly climbing up the ladder there, similar to Alpine at the end of last season, when they had I think it was a double podium with Ocon and Gasly later in the season, but a huge just like jump start for this team that's going to become Audi next year, to know that they're kind of on the upswing with all of the personnel changes that they've made in management and staff, Mattia Binotto being brought in, all these other engineers and folks who are involved in this Audi or this Kick Sauber outfit that's going to become Audi, that has to look mega for them going into next year with the new team. So yeah, a really, really just exciting weekend for Nico and Kick Sauber there.
Yeah, crazy, especially for somebody who we've only ever been able to highlight, some good qualifying performances. Yeah, this was just epic, and I love to see the stewards turn back on the DRS. Once Kick Sauber gave him the call and said, "Hey, I think we can do this," the FI was like, "All right, let him run." They flicked that shit right back on.
I mean, it's the DRS was definitely a question for me throughout the race, but when it came to Nico, he could have I would have said give it to him the whole race. I would be fine with that.
Exactly.
But I will have to bring you
That's funny.
back, Justin. I'm just gonna take one moment to just roll back the hands of time here back to a 2023 when we were looking, or maybe it was even before that. It might have been 2022 when we were talking about the Red Bull second seat, this mysterious cursed seat in the Formula One grid for any driver who has taken it. I do recall saying that I would love Nico Hulkenberg to come back in. It may have even been pre Sergio Perez. It might have been all the way back in COVID times where I was like, that Nico Hulkenberg guy who's been out of F1 year and is super subbing in for Aston Martin in the COVID years. That sounds like a guy I might want in a Red Bull. And now we see I was right all along that he could have taken that cursed seat and turned it around, but instead he's doing it for Kick Sauber here.
Yeah, dude. Are you predicting the future right now?
No, I'm just wishing that the Red Bull second seat wasn't such a tragedy of recent years. But no, just uh awesome for Nico, and I had to bring up my wishful thinking from many moons ago.
Yeah, I feel like if you're a Red Bull fan, you're gonna be wishful thinking for a long time. I'm gonna give you one of my winners here on the weekend, and we'll see if you can see if I'm being serious or not. So Lance Stroll, my winner on the weekend, epic 3-stop strategy, gets him one of the best results we've seen from him in a long time. Beats his teammate who was, not making terrible gains in the race. He didn't like go all the way backwards, but Lance, he did better than him. P17 Lance started, makes it all the way up to P7. I mean, if this was another name, we would be commending this, right? P17 to
Yeah.
P7 is very solid, and I just got to ask, like, is he a Rainmeister?
Um, he honestly, I'll give Lance his props. I know I was joking about it in the Discord during the race. I said something to the effect of, if Lance Stroll gets a podium, I'm gonna be sick. After seeing Max spin out under the safety car restart and everything. But I think Lance drove a really clean weekend, or at least a clean race. Maybe not a full weekend with that P17 qualifying, but the other side of it, it seems, and not to take anything away from him or Nico, but these drivers that almost have nothing to lose in a sense, they were able to take some different strategies, or they made that decision to take different strategies. Lance and Nico pitting and getting new inter tires both very early on. Lance pitted on lap 6 and then again on lap 10. Nico pitted on lap 9. And with all of the chaos and safety cars and crashes and incidents and everything that we had early on, I think that strategy and just having the fresher tires then the rest of the grid for that little extra bit just happened to make a significant difference for them. I think it just panned out super well with the strategy. But again, Lance drove a very clean race, but you see that just the Aston Martin, he kind of started to fall down the field after or in those later stages of the race there. But no, I'll 100% give Lance some kudos this week.
Oh yeah, I big time agree. I'm happy that you see my side with that. And then, I just have um I have the feeling that the championship is all locked up for McLaren. Even, a 1-2 this weekend, we're only halfway through. My other winner here on the weekend is McLaren. Yeah, even though Oscar just kind of flubbing the restart, I feel like that's I feel like that could happen to anybody type scenario, especially when the FIA can be not always like the most consistent. I feel like stuff like that's gonna happen. They were still like a minute and a half ahead of everybody. The 10-second penalty
Oh,
like didn't even matter.
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like barring like some weird weekends, yeah, it feels like McLaren just has this locked up. Another just solid 1-2. Like I say, it looked effortless even in the wet.
Yeah, and so I'll kind of piggyback onto this a little bit because I had Lando as my second winner this week, and I had Oscar as my first loser this week. So I can kind of, I think maybe give slightly different perspective, but similarly,
Yeah, go for
obviously
it.
it's well, and like you said, it's obviously a huge weekend for McLaren and the constructors. They're just continuing to push this constructors championship lead out. Like this might end up being one of those like records of most points scored by a team across a Formula One season because they're up at 460 points right now, halfway through the year. The second place in the championship is Ferrari with 222, less than half of their points at this point. So all things considered, I don't think much of a shot of anyone else coming and overtaking McLaren before the end of the year in the constructors. Um, but with Lando, like I just have to give him props. He had a trickier qualifying, starting a little bit further back on the grid, but drove a really solid, strong race. He had really good pace. Gets his way up through pretty well, and just didn't make any mistakes. Winning your home Grand Prix, as we talked about with Lewis, it's a very tough thing to do unless you're Lewis Hamilton. So, really exciting and big weekend for Lando there. Um, but then on the flip side with Oscar, I'm I can understand why he was pretty aggrieved after the race. He gets this penalty for and I think it just brings the penalty into the conversation a bit because he would have won the race without that 10-second penalty because he didn't make any mistakes outside of that on the weekend. I also I get why he asked for team orders to swap the cars around later in the race because even on the radio, they felt like it was a pretty unfair decision. Um, but I think looking at the situations, because a lot of people are comparing it to the George Russell safety car situation with Max, where George, I think, kind of maybe more intentionally tried to get Max to go past him than Oscar did here. I don't think that was Oscar's intention. I think it was he just mistakenly braked a little too hard and it was in kind of dangerous conditions and they were like whoa, that's unsafe. I thought the it was kind of a gray area penalty. um but I know for him, like losing out in points to Lando in this championship fight, it cuts his lead from an 18-point lead down to an 8-point lead, I think it was, or something like that. 16 points down to 8, somewhere in that ballpark. Um, but just really tough for a guy to not make any mistakes, and I don't even think it was an intentional decision necessarily, um or that he was doing anything insidious where he gets that penalty. So just a tough spot to be in when you're kind of locking in the race win, and then something outside of your control kind of gets thrown at you. So that's I guess the Oscar side for me, where of course it was a great weekend for McLaren, the 1-2 and everything, but with them being so far out ahead, um I'm shifting my focus maybe a little bit more towards this championship fight between Oscar and Lando there.
Sure, and just pick a if it's not going to be the Red Bull in contention, you'll just pick the lesser of two evils, whoever you've decided that is.
Well, I think at this point, I said I can kind of takes my max cap off now that he's out of contention for the championship. Um, it's hard not to really be so gung ho when it's such a competitive and exciting fight. Like I've really enjoyed the early stages of the season where they are all three kind of duking it out to try and win this championship. But now I think I can I can take um those Red Bull colored glasses off and just watch and enjoy some really good racing and really good cars that McLaren has put out there on the grid. So I think it'll just be exciting to kind of see how it shakes out and see who ends up getting the upper hand by the end of the year here. Um, but yeah, I don't have to. I mean, obviously, I'll still be pumped if Max wins, and I'll have a Max fact here and there. But I think that I mean these are two drivers that are really on superb form. And I have to give it to them both for how close this competition is.
Yeah, and hopefully we get some exciting racing at the front between the two of them to, supplement that, that Max may not be in the fight. I feel like he's going to be the like X factor up like he's going to be actively able to steal points from these drivers,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So he'll
he's
definitely
still
be in the
gonna.
mix.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I'm
right,
not.
like the long-term view, you're not like worried about that. That makes sense.
Right. And I
Yeah.
I think this also, like, and I'll give you another little point here with the McLaren, but a lot of the teams were struggling with super bad tire degradation on the intermediate tires. That's part of why we saw drivers pitting multiple times for new inters and everything. And weirdly enough, in a colder, wet race, the McLaren like ability or superpower to not have the tire degradation that all the other teams have been having, I think made a huge difference today or in this race with their pace. And like you said, pulling out like a minute gap to the next drivers in the field. Um, they that car is just it's phenomenal, and so very impressive with that as well, because I think Lance in particular was talking about at the end of the race his he just had some really bad tire deg on the inter that was part of why he kind of dropped through the field. So
Yeah, and you could see, especially in like the later stints, I'm pretty sure you saw all three slick tire compounds being run, different teams deciding, each one was going to be best for various reasons. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The reason I brought up for the earlier categories, the start, like the 50-50 start between the slicks and the wets, we see similar conditions play out in this race, starting under what seemed to be like light rain, maybe drizzly conditions. If not like no rain in the air, but like kind of wet on the track from earlier sessions. On the recce laps, some drivers deciding that they're going to take the gamble onto slicks, some, staying with the intermediate tires, and even drivers now that like throughout the race you would consider them out of place. A couple of my losers on the weekend were Leclerc and Russell. They were very confident from their position inside the cockpit. Their team's giving them the leeway to, hey, it's kind of up to you in this regard. And yeah, they went the tough route. Russell opting into the suicide strategy, like his team said, and they just fell off immediately. You have no grip, you have no race ability. You're just falling backwards once you're in that setup. So really unfortunate for Mercedes and Ferrari to have at least one of their drivers out in that regard. I know, or at least I'm pretty sure the Ferraris had a split strategy, and then just
They
something else
did,
happened
yeah.
to Kimi Antonelli. But yeah, we see how significant that gamble is on the changeover window of the track, where it's not just like a few tenths or like a second a lap or whatever. You're opting into potentially being at the back of the race if
Yeah.
it doesn't go well, if it's not the right tire to be on. So it's tough to see that gamble go poorly. But yeah, for every time a driver gambles and it goes well, another one's going to be bleeding to the back. So unfortunate to see that it's such strong drivers such as Leclerc and Russell, but
Yeah.
tough.
And I think it's yeah, it was one of those weird situations from hearing the drivers talk. The first two sectors of the track were fully ready for dry tires for slicks. But the last sector was just so wet that they couldn't keep it on track with the slicks early on. So taking that gamble like did not pay off for Leclerc and for George. But if if it had, then who knows? Maybe they would have been up in those top positions and everything, and been able to put themselves in a good spot. Unfortunately, not the case. Um, and they both kind of lose out. George is able to creep back into the points to snag P10 for 1 point at the end. But yeah, really really tricky decision making there. And my second loser on the weekend, kind of similarly, is just all of the rookies in the rain. Five of the six rookies DNF'd, or we had Colapinto did not start due to some issues there with Alpine. Um, but and then Ollie Behrman crashing into his own teammate at one point. He and Ocon made contact, did their little synchronized spinning across the circuit. I felt like it was probably more, it was kind of a 50-50. Like they're both out there. It's very slick conditions. It wasn't I didn't think there was much of a mistake made from either of them necessarily, just like bad conditions, racing incident kind of situation. Of course, you never want to see driver teammates hit each other, um, but yeah, the rookies just struggling. And similarly to Australia, the first race of the season, we saw a number of the rookies struggle there. Um, Today or in this race, Isaac Hadjar, and the visibility just plows into the back of Kimi Antonelli, taking the two of them out, breaking the diffuser. So that second Mercedes car knocked out there. We saw Liam Lawson spinning off. We saw Yuki Tsunoda playing bumper cars again a little bit and having some contact here and there throughout the race, struggling with the Red Bull setup that they had gone for with the car and everything. So yeah, just overall a really tough race for these rookies. They're definitely getting their Boy Scout badges for rainy races this year.
Yeah, and honestly, for the Haas duo, if they both or one of them were like taken out of the race due to this, my tone would not be as even. I likely would have started the conversation there probably. But yeah, two teammates taking each other out like in a late race, like awful conditions. You shouldn't even be like next to your teammate like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so, nothing happened. They do their like you said, they did their little synchronized swimming routine, the joke that everybody was making, and everything was okay. But boy, if one of those cars goes out, if both of those cars are out, you're dealing with a double DNF now. Like those are the team on team war crimes that I hate to see. And then especially like one of them's a rookie, so there's even more like you could throw even more negative connotation on there, oh, rookie drivers just all of that stuff. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
damn, thank God these Haas drivers didn't take them out. They were able to or take each other out. They were able to finish the race because yeah, I mean that would just be so egregious. But I still believe it's like uh that stuff shouldn't be happening. Even for rookies, no matter what team,
That's
that sucks to see.
that's a team mistake in my mind more than anything. Like with
Oh,
like I
sure,
said,
like communication and stuff.
well, yeah, I mean, if you
Okay,
have
yeah,
to put
fair.
team orders in because they were on the verge of points with both drivers, I believe, at that point in time. And even if they pick up 3 points, that's huge. They're only 7 points back from Aston Martin and Racing Bulls in the championship. If they get a P9, P10, snag 3 points there, and maybe even bump Alonso out from getting a couple points, depending on how it shakes out. That could be a huge swing for their championship contention there for those positions down the field. And so, um, although they both finished the race, I think they could have potentially had a shot at points and ended up losing out on that opportunity because of this mistake. And if you're running in the points in a back to midfield car, like you said, they should never be next to each other in those situations. There should be some sort of conversation happening that is like telling them both to actively avoid uh Esteban, it's Ollie in front of you. Like, don't do do not pass. Don't risk anything, whatever it is. But that conversation should probably have been had from the Haas team.
Yeah, big time agree. And so, as we see whole bunch of as we see a whole bunch of different winners and losers here that maybe we're used to talking about, obviously shout out McLaren. We love that they're winning. But yeah, just these wet weather races just create all sorts of confusion, chaos. We see out of position cars, teams double DNFing, both like you had mentioned, Isak and Liam Lawson both out. So yeah, just tough stuff when you get to the wet weather racing, but also through that chaos, a Hulkenberg can emerge.
Yeah, and I'll also give Lewis a shout out. He really did make a run to try and get that 13th podium in a row here in Silverstone. A really good drive from him to try and make his way up through, and he had some really good pace towards the end, but just couldn't quite catch up to Nico, which obviously I'm super happy for Nico, but a very very good drive from Lewis as well in the Ferrari, and now that's I think 2 weeks in a row where he's finished P4 and looked pretty strong there. So I'm definitely impressed by Lewis's drive as well on the weekend. I think he performed admirably in a Ferrari that even Charles Leclerc was saying was just brutally difficult to drive in the conditions. So
Yeah, I mean, Leclerc can't talk though. He got to play Mario Kart. He got to drive on all the secret routes of the track. He got to do whatever he wanted. So like, yeah, who cares what he says? But
ah,
honestly, I
it's
was
the rain.
yeah, yeah,
It's
for
just the
real.
rain.
As he just eats 6 seconds out of the lead ahead of him. Oh no, it's just the rain. Like, but no, I was paying attention to Lewis Hamilton's onboards, and it was interesting to hear the conversation between him and his
Race engineer.
uh race engineer, where dude, their comms, they were locked in. It was like a war zone lobby, dude. They were like talking about the track conditions, like, yo, what tire do you want to be on, like blah blah blah, until right at the end of the race when his race engineer, he was like, oh dude, me and Lewis were bonding. He's like, I'm gonna give him some info, and he was like, gap ahead 5 seconds. Lewis is like, yeah, I know, bud, shut the hell up.
Yeah, I think there's it's good to see that the communication is improving, but that was yeah, not the perfect ending to it. I'm sure Lewis was at that point just like I you
Oh,
just
you're
have to
probably
know the
exhausted.
situation because I mean he know you can't tell me it wasn't in the back of Lewis's mind about the podium finish streak and everything and wanting to be up there on the podium at his home race and all again. Where he gets told 5 seconds and he's got like however many laps to go. He's like, ah, nah, it's shot. Why'd you just kill my vibe? But I think the other, the cool thing about these races, and Alex Albon said something similar when he was on the post race show, but when you're in the thick of it and you are in such a chaotic, crazy race where there's crashes and incidents and safety cars and different tire strategies and all these things, all you can do is like be locked in on your driving and what your team is trying to do strategy wise, where you don't have the opportunity to like really be thinking about like what position even are you or who's in front of you, who's behind you. You're just like just so focused on your race and what you can do. So I think that definitely benefits those communication things, like where Lewis and his race engineer are really just bouncing things back and forth and having good conversations. I'm sure that is a like good growing experience for that relationship to go through this kind of crazy race.
Dude, because I've been monitoring it since he's got into Ferrari, and I mean the comms between him and Bono, it sounded like movie writers were writing the communications that they have, like
Yeah.
the lines that Bono would have, like it was pure cinema sometimes, like the comms v like what the result in the race was.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's just so crazy to hear just all the way back down, the rank resets here. So I've been paying attention to the radio comms, and I guess what I'm monitoring is like Lewis's comfortability in the car and
Mhm.
that connection with your race engineer vis-a-vis your pit wall, right? Your strategy, your team, how he is feeling in relation to them is just an interesting thing to track, because in his final years at Mercedes, I mean, he was like it. It felt like he had the whole operation at his fingertips, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to effectively watch him have to build all of that back up. And this was a race where it seemed like things have been improving in that regard.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting case study to see like someone go from being with the team, and it makes you curious about just like it makes my head curious at least about like, oh, what if Leclerc decides that Ferrari's not where he's going to win a championship at some point down the road, if that ends up being the case? Or what if Max leaves Red Bull? Like what would those growing pains potentially look like when you've been with a team for so long and make that switch? And Lewis's I mean, if anyone's able to do it and perform well, it's going to be Lewis. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting thing, and I know I've been keeping tabs as we hear, and there's been a lot more difficult conversation between Lewis and his pit wall, but yeah, a strong P4 for him here. And the only other kind of thoughts that I just wanted to put out, one, ahead of the race, I didn't quite realize how drastically Red Bull had gone with their setup towards dry weather racing. Like they really had Max. I knew that it was like that they had gone for it for quali and everything. I didn't know it was that bad with the downforce he was missing.
Wait, shouldn't they have a rear wing? I'm just gonna trust them. I guess it's okay.
Yeah, I didn't yeah, I didn't realize how egregious it was, and then like watching the race, listening to the post race show and everything where they were talking about it, I was like I talked about with Alex Pillow and his uncharacteristic mistake. Max is he's the rainmeister. He does the rain dances on the regular when he's not in the fastest car, and this was really bizarre to see him spin out under the safety car restart and everything, whether that had something to do with colder tires from the whole Piastri penalty incident and whatnot, or if it was just like purely the car just didn't have the grip that he needed at that point. Whatever it was, that setup really was detrimental. I was impressed that he held on to the lead as long as he did early on, honestly. Because I, looking back, like the McLarens, I feel like could have easily gobbled him up, but that front clean air in a wet race is definitely a huge thing. Um, but the other interesting thing, and this was more from the post race show, they talked to Zach Brown and whatnot about the penalty, what the thoughts were, and everything. But it kind of brings this conversation back into my mind about the stewarding and not being able to criticize stewarding decisions and whatnot. Like Zach Brown was like, "Hey, I don't mind Oscar asking about swapping places back, but it just kind of is what it is. Sometimes the chips fall to you, and sometimes they fall the other way." But if McLaren had gone and given team orders and said, "Hey, swap the positions around. We like that penalty is incorrect. It's out of line. You did nothing wrong." What does that look like, or what does that say about the stewarding decision if they're like, we don't give a shit about what you say with your penalties, we're gonna finish the drivers in the order that we had them in before you sent your bullshit? Like, does that become a criticism of the stewarding where they get penalized by MBS and the FIA for because of these new regulations about you can't criticize the decision? Like it's an interesting thing to think about, because obviously I think Zach Brown didn't look at it that way. It was more of a hey, we it just is what it is. Sometimes the safety car works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. It's just one of those racing things. We weren't gonna snatch away the home Grand Prix win from Lando and cause negative atmosphere in our team. But Oscar said after the race that he didn't feel like he could say anything about the say much about the penalty because of these rules about criticism of stewarding decisions. And so if they manipulate the results to completely go to the contrary of what this penalty does, is that looked at as McLaren criticizing the decision and saying, "Hey, you're wrong, we're right, we're going to make it our way." Like I think it's kind of just a curious or a curiosity that keeps popping into my mind as we see things throughout the year.
No, I genuinely think that'd be more than a criticism. That would be a total undermining of their authority. I think that would be a an indictment of like their capacity to lead a race. It would mean that McLaren doesn't really care about like racing integrity. It means that everything that they've said before about like papaya rules, let them race, that was all bullshit. And what it would be is like, I mean, call it what you like, but honestly, I feel like that's like manipulation. I feel like that's
Oh,
like
it is, and I think like
very unsportsmanlike.
yeah, and it is really it's just interesting because I wasn't even thinking about it as much on the side of McLaren and their drivers as much as I am about like Zach Brown, Andrea Stella, Oscar Piastri all said that they disagreed, and including Zach Brown during the race. It was like, yeah, like Oscar, we don't think Oscar did anything wrong or deserved the penalty. Like they vocally were like, this penalty is not what should have happened. So yeah,
Sure, but
then if they
that's the team. I mean, I want to hear Haas's opinion on it. I want to hear what they think about it, right? Because they're not involved, right?
well,
McLaren's
but
obviously going to be biased.
yeah, well, but I mean, in the circumstances, like, does the FIA penalize McLaren if they decide to swap the positions around or whatnot because the statement is would be basically criticizing the FIA's stewarding decision in that sense, less so about the like just the integrity of the decisions or the papaya rules or what they have going on in their inner team like battle, but more so like this concept of this very vague if you criticize the FIA and stewarding decisions, then you could get race bans and constructors points taken away and penalty points and yada 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 that
Right.
they added in. um
Bro, no, what you're talking about, it's literal like that's literal like results fixing.
well, yeah, it 100% would be if they decided to, but at the same time we've seen them swap around positions because oh well like he was getting pressure from behind, so we pitted him ahead of you even though you were in the lead. So we swapped positions back at the end of the race because we were just trying to cover off the team behind that was catching us. Like that's a similar manipulation. Like there's been team orders to Lewis, let Charles through. He's got more pace right now. That's a manipulation of the that's not just hey it's racing, like get past your teammate, we're not going to say anything. I feel like any team orders in general is would be considered a manipulation, but doing it in the circumstance where they're circumventing the FIA's stewarding decision to say we know
That's what I'm
better is
saying,
like,
right?
yeah, that's where I'm curious. Like, if they did that, does the
Dude,
FIA penalize them or start throwing down the ban hammer? Like, it's a weird. It has to be such a weird gray area for these teams to live in. So, I think it makes sense in a number of a number of reasonings why McLaren didn't give team orders and swap it around. Whether that's we're not going to take this away from Lando at like while he's winning, drove a phenomenal weekend and is winning his home Grand Prix. We're not going to snatch that away from him by team orders. That's like one big side of it. But two, like if we even do this because we feel it's right that Oscar wins because he's driven a clean race and we feel like he did nothing wrong, like does that negatively affect us all as a team by doing that? So
Yeah, my thesis would be it must. And if there
yeah,
wouldn't be a rule in place at the time of the event, I think there would definitely have to be considerations made about, again, you would just have to examine what A, clearly define team orders, and then B, decide should team orders be allowed, or do you just leave it like all up to racing? Which I
yeah,
think most of the teams are trying to do. I think that's
yeah. I
McLaren
think
honoring the governing body saying, yeah, we kind of disagree. We think it's a dumb penalty, but it's out of our hands. Their jurisdiction supersedes ours. Like that's how
right.
it should be. That's how it should be. That the
Mhm.
governing body should have more power than the teams, regardless if their driver feels like whatever he got shafted. Because
Oh yeah.
I don't want to live in a world where teams are like um comfortable with like manipulating results that heavily even when there were rules infractions in place that caused said whatever, because I just feel like that's a slippery slope, man.
Yeah, and but I think I agree with you there. I think like that this was the right decision for them to make in regard to just everything that the decisions that were made on the weekend, whether the stewarding or just their team decisions and all. But I on the other side, I don't want to live in a world where the FIA is a all knowing, all powerful, can't be wrong or can't make a mistake governing body where they can just slam down penalties and penalty points and bans and things like that with no checks and balances, I guess, where their say is final and you can't question it because if you do like you can't question it out of fear. And that's how Oscar's uh post race conversation kind of went. I mean, after he finished he said, "I'm not going to say much. I'll get myself in trouble." Well done to Nico. I think that's the highlight of the day. Apparently you can't brake behind the safety car anymore. I did it for 5 laps before that. I'm not going to say too much because I'll get myself in trouble. Like if you're and this is Oscar Piastri, who is like one of the most even-keeled people that we've seen on the grid in a long time, the second coming of the Iceman Kimi Räikkönen. I yeah, I just think that I I don't want to live in a world where you can't question the decisions out of fear either. I think, like I said, that McLaren made the right call today with the way that they let things shake out with the race and the penalty. Tough situation for Oscar, but yeah, I don't want them to. I don't want a manipulation of the results, but even in a lesser circumstance, I don't want teams and drivers to not be able to or not feel like they can protest things that they feel are unfair just because they're afraid of getting smacked with some sort of penalty or whatnot.
So I'm curious that, yeah,
It's tough
I
because it's
hear
like
you.
it's such a complex like and yeah, I don't know if there's a right answer. It's just something that like when these things crop up, I'm curious about the decision making, I guess, from the teams and drivers and all. Whether that's out of fear, whether McLaren just felt like, hey, it just is what it is, or hey, we love both our drivers. We're not gonna ruin someone's day because someone else made a decision we don't agree with. Like, there's a number of things that come into play, I'm sure, with that decision making from the team, but I just hope that fear of stewarding decisions isn't necessarily one of them. So,
Yeah, I think regardless of like what our opinions would be on it, I think just enter the drivers association and hopefully they have, avenues to handle this stuff like post race in the off time. Cuz yes, the drivers should be able to vent their concerns and have them be like brought to the table in a meaningful way. Should there be a little more leeway in the post races, especially when like emotions are going to be high? They're coming straight out of the cars, straight in front of the microphones. Should there be a little more leeway, kind of like understanding the mindset that some of these drivers are going to be in? Yeah, probably, because it does suck to hear them all just be like, "Oh, yeah, I can't really say anything," and like every question now they just duck behind that because whatever. So
right.
yeah, it does get pretty tiring to hear. So yeah, hopefully there can be change in that avenue because yeah, it's clearly
Yeah.
something that like totally chaps you, man. You hate it. You want to hear the tea.
Oh, I just want them to be able to speak their minds. I
Sure.
liked, and I don't like it on the level of what it was in 2021 when team principals are on the horn to Michael Massey mid race, like vying for their things. But I
Where
also
were you?
like
Where were you in 2021, man?
I was living the dream. Um but I mean, like, I don't think that's right, but I also don't think that the way that it's almost like it rubber banded the furthest opposite direction, like just equally as far the other way. I would love for it to be in the middle where drivers can speak their mind. Yeah, if a driver's like, "Oh, these effing idiots are so stupid. They're the worst stewards. They should all be fired and never allowed to even steward a karting race in the rest of their lives." Like, if someone goes off like yeah, there's a level where you can easily be like, "Hey, this is no longer criticism. This is abuse towards the stewards." But just a driver not being like, I didn't feel like I did anything different. If you watch the previous laps, I braked the same at this spot trying to get temperature in my tires. So I don't think that was fair. But they're worried to even say that in the situation. I'm like, I, can we meet in the middle somewhere? That would be ideal. But um before I think that's why it chaps me is just how on both ends of the spectrum we have been, and neither of them are correct in my mind for where it should be. I want the drivers to have personality. I want to hear from them and root for them and have them vent when they have a bad race and have them exclaiming and excited and everything when they have a good race. Like, I want the full emotions from the sport because it is a passionate sport and they're driving around at hundreds of miles an hour risking life and limb for points and championships, and it's exciting. So I like to just take it all in, and um I feel like everyone loses out when those things are squashed.
I would agree. We need to find the Goldilocks zone for the for the media pen. We need to find the Goldilocks zone. I want to be able to hear cheeky Piastri. I want to be able to hear contemptible Piastri. I want to be able to hear triumphant Piastri, right? I want to be able to get all the flavors, all the nuance of their personalities. That's me.
Yeah, because I mean, there's going to be plenty of times where guys get penalties and they know that they did something wrong. George in Monaco cutting corners just to be like, ah, yeah, let them hit me with the penalty, and they're like, that's a 10-second drive through, like, that or a drive through penalty or whatever, like that. That's gonna happen sometimes, but other times I think there is like a lot of nuance in this, and I like being able to hear the driver's explanation of XYZ and all, whether it's dejected or exclamatory. But I digress. Everyone's heard me rant this episode way too long about the FIA. I'll have to tone that down a little bit. But any final notes before we head over to the cool down lap here?
I just thought it was crazy how Charles Leclerc had one of those drunken weekends where they just kept stumbling around the halls and just like forcefully like not on accident, like running into their ex. Literally everywhere Carlos Sainz was going, like he was just trying to get a drink, Leclerc runs into him. Like he was just trying to get a sandwich, like Leclerc just runs into him. It's like, bro, like if you want to talk, that's fine, we can talk. Like
I mean, it was uncanny how often they were by each other there, duking it out. It took Esteban Ocon and Oliver Behrman crashing into each other to split those two up. That was the only way. Ocon just had to shoulder his way in between and say, "Hey there, can I get by you here?" But yeah, that's it was definitely a one-off race, I think, for Charles this week. Um, to be battling with Carlos, who the Williams car has definitely been struggling recently. So not the ideal situation there.
yeah, unsure about what happened, and then I've been holding on to this one since Sunday afternoon, and then yeah, you just have Max Ratstappen just using every angle possible. Even under normal safety car conditions, he's on the mic just trying to get every advantage. Like, oh, this motherfucker's just slowing down. What the fuck?
I I will say, like, looking at the penalty and all, because there was the comparison to George and everything, I really feel
Hmm.
like the only difference that, or the only reason was the wet weather. Like Max,
Yeah, yeah,
I
obviously.
mean, well, because I mean, being on the radio and everything, I'm sure he was already frustrated with like the way the car was driving and everything. And then he like, if you watch the replay, he actually had to take an avoiding action to avoid rear-ending Piastri. Where with the George Russell incident, they were both like separated, and also in the Russell situation they knew it was ending under safety car there, where this was going to a restart. So I think just those like two differences made the difference in the penalty being handed out. Do I think that I think most of Max's frustration was due to other circumstances, and that was just like his little tipping point on the radio. But yeah, I think without the wet weather, that just doesn't happen, because Max is
Oh
probably
yeah.
freaking out because he's not able to slow his car down quick enough because of the wet weather and bad setup and everything. Um, so yeah, just Max is just a radio merchant. I know.
That's really funny. I've heard that like way more recently, the like merchants of the like
Oh
bosses
yeah.
of, and I'm like, damn dude, that's actually hilarious.
Yeah, but Rat Staffen, that's a good one. I'll have to add it to my list of names I've heard Max be called. There's actually that one might already be on the list, so we'll have to take a peek at it.
Yo, I hope not, because that's a K-Drill original. I came up with that one this weekend using inspiration from recent media. So I hope that's not on your list. That was totally new.
I'll get back to you on it, but why don't we hop on over to the cool down lap? We've got the flavor of the week this week. If you want to go ahead and tell us about your flavor of the week, Justin.
Sounds good, sir. So there's a restaurant just a couple minutes down the road, and they have street taco, just like a plate of street tacos, just the double tortilla, steak, onion, cilantro, a little bit of lime. Perfect. You can order any amount that you want. If you want one, you can order one. If you want 15, they'll send you 15. And they're right down the road. Their sauce is amazing. So I've definitely enjoyed some of their tacos recently, and I didn't really know the place was there, but now I'm hooked
This
effectively.
is not the same place that was near uh your last place, correct? That we got the seafood, or I got a seafood burrito from. It was near the bar we played pool at. It was a little like mom
Death.
and pop.
Oh no, I know where you're talking about. Different place.
Yeah.
I guess just as good. Yeah, there's a bunch of good tacos around, but yeah, different
Sweet.
place than that one. So yeah, just really enjoyed that. And then my music here for the week, bit of a throwback, but it was an interesting listen, and I realized there's some percentage of my music collection that I don't know it. I don't know if I've ever really listened to it, and I have this feeling that because at first attempt to listen, it like there were elements that were not like obviously familiar. I like put it down. I didn't trust that I would like it, specifically with this album, Plastic Beach from Gorillaz, but also
Hmm.
like a bunch of other stuff as well, where it's like I don't know if I've ever listened to this song actually. Um, but a just on shuffle, a song from Plastic Beach came on, and when I have that itch to like skip a song because I just don't like immediately recognize the first note, sometimes I tell myself I'm just like, "Yo, just leave it. Just
Hmm.
chill." And I did, and I listened to the song and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, what am I stupid? I like the Gorillas. Like, of course this is a good song." And then I was like, "Wait, I don't know this album." So I put on the whole album and I was like, "Damn, this bangs. This is so good." Go ahead.
Oh no, that's really interesting because I've heard some Gorillaz stuff recently, and I really haven't listened to much other than Feel Good Inc. for like
Wild.
yeah, like and I enjoy their style. I've had a couple of new ones. I think the one song that I came across recently, I think it's called Ascension. I think it's Vince Staples and the Gorillaz. If
Oh
I
my god, yo, that's probably from the Humans album. Yo, that record is so good, like genuinely.
yeah,
Or it's like
so
newer and I haven't heard it.
yeah, so it's not that new. It's 2017.
Oh, yep, that's from
Ascension.
Humans.
It's from yeah, yep. It's from Humans.
Yeah.
But has Vince Staples and recently just popped into my Spotify like mixes that they've thrown at me, and so that's just an interesting thing that you would bring them up as well. So
Oh yeah, just because they're coming across your feed. But yeah, so that album's great, and Plastic Beach like approaching that album with like a wanting to experience it for the first time view. I was like, damn, dude, this is wonderful, and again, just another Gorillaz album that I fell in love with. So to anybody out there who hits next way too much. Maybe just let it play, because I found something beautiful. And then my visual medium here for the week, bro. I've been diving deep into my movie list. I have a whole list of films that I want to watch. I have a bunch of different directors and things that I want to check out. So I've knocked a couple off my list, but none have been as notable as telling you about MSI 2025. literally the best format ever. It's best of 5 fearless all the way through. So stage 1,
Oh man.
stage 2, all the way to the finals. Damn near every series has gone to at least 4 games. Some have been 3-0s, but like those have been exciting for other reasons. But dude, this best of 5 fearless draft makes for some of the most entertaining series ever. And the teams, like, bro, MSI has been so epic. So epic. The T1 versus BLG matchup that was a rematch of the 24 World Finals. You're like, oh my God, just like the names, the pedigree, like it feels like a world's final, like semifinal playoff rounds. But bro, like they're not even playing for elimination yet. Like the series just feels so good. The fearless draft is the best thing in league since like Jinx came out or whatever. But dude, this year's internationals for League of Legends, both the first stand and now this MSI tournament, bangs, bro. It's been so good.
Oh, that's I mean, that is something that I'll have to check out. I still, of course, I have Cadril and LS and all of those guys coming up on my Twitter feed. So I've seen conversations about T1's drafting and all of this. And so the Fearless draft is definitely an um interesting like twist to throw in. I think it has definitely increased the um kind of interest for a lot of people to mix things up, not just let people um, be be a specific champion one trick or anything like that to carry a team through. So yeah, so very cool. I'll definitely have to check out some of those games and look back. We're not too deep into it, so I could still easily catch up to where we are as we have the finals. It looks like this weekend or the later stages.
Yeah, I think coming up soon. But yeah, just some really good games. But Aaron, I'm looking forward to hearing about your flavor of the week. What you got?
Yeah, so I'll try to run through mine pretty quickly. Get the people out of here. But my food this week is just seafood in general. With our trip down to the Outer Banks, and then we were down at the Jersey Shore this past weekend. Colleen and I with her family. We've had a lot of good seafood, some shrimp, scallops, oysters, just the whole spread of different seafoods over the past few weeks, and I am just thriving. It's been phenomenal. I love seafood, and so getting to enjoy that in the summertime and all with a nice cold Corona with some lime and everything. It's just been pretty solid. My music is actually kind of the fact that I'm struggling right now to figure out what to listen to. And so listen, like hearing from your side, that was the other thing that I kind of wanted to mention, is just that I want to figure out some different concepts for playlists for myself, because I've talked about my issue with Spotify before, but it just feeds you the algorithm if you use their AI like shuffle where it mixes in songs that aren't in your whatever. It just hyper fixates and compounds on itself, because it goes, oh, you have a bunch of this kind of music, let me feed you a bunch of that same music as these extra songs. And then it's like, oh wow, you're really listening to that same kind of music that we keep feeding you, so let's just feed you more and more and more.
Okay.
um and so I've just been struggling because like the barrier to entry, I guess, of like creating a playlist that is going to last me longer than just a couple weeks of listening, even if it's something that I just have on the side that I go back to periodically, is like a difficult, for my brain. It's like a very big task to take on. um I don't know necessarily where to start, because I feel like I just end up kind of stuck in these little bubbles that Spotify creates for me. And I am not good at on the spot thinking about, oh, like this morning on my way to work, I'm going to listen to this album from this person, or I'm going to listen to this one. I don't have like a list of, well, I'm going to listen to this on Monday and this on Tuesday and go. And I think I might need to just like put a list together of artists that I enjoy and actually listen to their, like, through some of their anthology or whatever the term would be of their music, their library. Um because I love listening to music, and I feel stagnant right now with it. So it's kind of a weird spot to be in. But for my visual medium this week, this is not a show or movie or anything. It's just it's similar to my food being seafood, but the visuals of being on the beach and around the shore and everything with the water has been really enjoyable and relaxing. Like, we took Senna to a dog beach all weekend, like in the morning, so that she could run around and tire herself out. And like seeing her get to play in the water, or when I was like going on runs on the boardwalk, or um, boogie boarding with the nieces and everything, whatever it was like that. It was just a very, very fun environment, and seeing and people watching and everything. That is has been very enjoyable. So a little bit different of a shift with my flavor of the week this week, but yeah, hopefully if anyone has any strategies on how I can maybe take on this task of figuring out or creating a playlist that um encompasses a wider range of my musical interests and whatnot, um I'm happy to hear them, because it just feels like I'd be taking on a kind of monumental task, um, to try and find all of these songs from all of these artists that I enjoy and kind of put them all into this big shuffle playlist to listen to.
Yeah, and like what would you be going for? Would you be going for like greatest hits? Would you be going for like some particular type of vibe? Maybe
And
I'll just offer something up to you. One thing that I have done before for making a playlist is just scrolling through, having it sorted by artist, by letter, and then when you come to an artist that you like in your mind stands out, like you define that as whatever it is, it like comes off the page a little bit, then you stop and then you just pick one song. Like don't even like look that hard. Just like let the first thing that kind of lights up, just choose that, but then now you gotta find another song from another artist. And that made some decent playlists. I made a couple decent playlists, so that's one way. That's one way to go about it. I'd be interested if you go the like album listening route, because then we could revisit that conversation of trapped on a desert island with a magical turntable. What albums do you take? Because I would love to hear like what your take is, because I know we have similar music tastes, but we haven't talked about albums in a long time. So I'd be
yeah,
interested if you think of like, I want to explore this, and this, and go that route. Because yeah, you got to get away from the vibes, man, and the feed. The feed doesn't know what you need, man.
it does. Well, and that's the frustrating thing. Like, I am constantly in a like skipping songs like thing where I'm
No, no,
just
no, no.
like,
You
nope,
gotta
wrong
play
vibe,
them.
wrong vibe, wrong vibe, wrong vibe, and I'm like just skipping through to find that. But yeah, it's tough because I don't know if it's like I want my favorite songs, like all of my favorite songs from all of my favorite artists all on one playlist, where it could be going from Miley Cyrus to Kendrick Lamar to like whoever out to Billy Joel, like that feels weird in my mind to potentially have those like those things and whatnot. So I'll have to put some thought into it, but
I know it. I figured out what your problem is. The first binary that you have to decide is this just for me, or is there a remote possibility that somebody else hears this
oh no, this is
like
just for
via
me.
me putting it on? So then you don't
Yeah.
have to care. You don't have to care about like, oh, what's it seem like? No,
But
you just pick
it's
songs that you like. You
but
feel
it's
me?
like where to start like with it. Do
Sure.
I yeah, it's a conundrum I've been trying to figure out. But anyway, that is the flavor of the week. That brings us to the end of the episode here for the British Grand Prix recap. Um we had Lando Norris P1, Oscar Piastri P2, Nico Hulkenberg P3 to round out the podium there at the British Grand Prix. But as always, we really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to us and listen to me rant and rave about many, many things.
Oh, the FIA is so tough on Max. That's me if I was Aaron. But no, we
Good
really
one.
appreciate it. We really appreciate you taking the time out to listen and hang out with us. Our next episode will be after the Spa Grand Prix, so join us after the next round. Pretty sure in a couple of weeks though. So just stay tuned, and we'll have fresh new Formula One content ready for you. So thank you very much for listening, and peace out, everyone.
See ya.